Hello, I'm Sam, and you are listening to Geliteracy, where we will not be doing another 10-hour stream. No, it's not happening. Hi everybody, welcome. Tonight I'm gonna be reading some Mark Twain, and as I was saying in chat before the stream started, which if you're watching on YouTube, firstly, hi YouTube, thank you for listening. If you for some reason not already subscribed to the channel, there's a subscribe button down there. It costs you nothing, and we welcome the view count. But yes, hello. As I was saying in chat, I don't know if I prepared way too much or not enough. I genuinely have no idea how to estimate how long any of these are going to take to read. It's like a whole melange of the short to the long. By long, I mean one's about 15 pages, and the short ones are like 2 to 3, 4 pages, whatever each. So it's I've generally got a good rough handle on things, not in life, but in terms of reading duration. Somewhere between like 15 to 20 pages takes about 45 minutes to 50 minutes, that kind of thing. It's about good for a half. But that obviously varies depending on the book and how the pages are laid out and how densely packed. So it's all over the place. So we're going to see. It's going to be fine. I'm probably going to be able to read everything. There's a chance I might not. I don't know. But yes, hello everybody. Welcome in. Diana, thank you very much for the resub. I said it in chat, but I'll say it here as well. So there's a permanent record on stream, because chat, as we know, is transitory and it just disappears. It's flighty like that. And to everyone else as well. Lynn, Andy Pam, Salad, Llama, Parola, Ray Tracer as well. You don't have to read through chat and call out everybody by name, but I thought I'd do it for once. Lucy seems to do it more. I don't know. Me, I get self-conscious when my name is called out like that, but experiences may differ. How are you all doing? Are we well? Are we good? It's Saturday evening for me. And so, halfway through the weekend. How's everyone else doing? I assume Dave is still making pasta on Plate Up. I was watching until a few minutes ago. Well, not necessarily pasta, obviously. He was playing Plate Up. All good. Writing and chilling. Well, do I have the Twitch channel for you? I mean, reading rather than write, but, same ballpark. The internet fired you from Dave's restaurant, so now you're here to heckle me? Ah, damn it, can we get you re-employed? I will put in a good word. I do not need heckling. Also of note, I will not be doing old-timey, folksy, southern accents for this. You do not want my foghorn leghorn impression. It's not happening. You heckle with love? I know. The weather has been so lovely lately. You're having a great weekend so far? It's very complicated. It's not very complicated. It's weird. No. I'm baffled by the weather at the moment, because during the day, when the sun is out, it is bright and lovely and warm and it feels like spring, and then at night it's getting down to like 4 degrees, and I am cold again, and I don't like it. I'm done with winter now. It has been winter for 7 years. I am ready for the sun. Brilliant, pretty decent. Packed most stuff, so you don't have to stress too much about that. Good. Nice. The Oxford gig's the first one up, isn't it? I can't remember exactly what date that is on, but I know it's soon, because they're back next week. Is it like middle of next week or something? March be like that? It do be like that, but I wish it weren't. You absolutely do want my accent? No. No, because we've got real Americans in chat this evening, and they'll be mean about me. Miserably drizzly. No. We had a bit of rain here this afternoon, but yeah, it's just feeling like spring during the day. First one's on Wednesday? Cool. Nice. Yeah, I really hope that you have a good time there. Yeah, now I guess I'll say it again. Probably not that people disappointed by it don't want reminding, but yeah, I am sorry about the news that had to go out on Friday about Column not being able to support, but I really hope that the replacement is good. I mean, people seem to really like Natty Dread. So yeah, I'm confident that it will still be an awesome show, but yeah, I hope that everyone's able to enjoy it. Yeah, wait, what? You call that the Jubilee? No, sorry, Jubilee de Mars. De Mars? It means it's both beautiful and awful weather at the same time. Ah, okay, yes. We just go, ooh, it's weird March weather, isn't it? Nobody here is mean except for you unintentionally about fashion choices. Were you in Dave's chat where, independent of me being there, it still came up that I apparently dress like Winnie the Pooh and can do a good Winnie the Pooh impression? Thanks to Lucy saying, oh yeah, Sam does a really good Winnie the Pooh impression, and then remembering that she just fabricated that, but now it's out there, and even now I'm helping to spread this myth that I can do it. You're very sad about the lack of column, but you'll survive unless anything else happens. I have nothing else. Like, there is nothing. I realise, like, immediately it's like, okay, Sam, what are you going to say? Because everything's going to be checked for, like, any clues or hints about anything else. No, there was, to the best of my knowledge, no further bad news about that. And yeah, I'm sorry for the disappointment of. Obviously, it's way beyond my hands and nothing I can do about it. But it's effectively being the one that had to break that bad news to everyone. It's not nice knowing. All myths have a grain of truth. No, not necessarily. I don't think that holds up to absolute scrutiny. Winnie the Pooh emote went. No, it wasn't even on this channel. People who only follow this have no idea what's. Anyone that's not from around these parts, on a different channel, Longest John's Gaming, a while back, I was wearing a yellow T-shirt and a red hoodie, and Twitch chatter Majestic Salad showed up and said, "Oh, Sam, you're dressed as Winnie the Pooh," and this has now become my legacy. This is going on my gravestone. So yeah. Anyway. I guess. What am I hiding? I'm hiding nothing. There was nothing is being hid. Right. So, stories. We have stories. I have gathered and collected some works from Mark Twain. The finest. No, I mean, people know what the finest ones are. They can reel them off by name, and they have all sorts of uncomfortable words in them. But these ones don't. So these are ones that I'm going to read this evening, which are from the Penguin Classics collection of Mark Twain short stories. And I am undecided on which order to read them in. Chat, you still okay? Fine. You do your thing. I'm just going to sit over here and read. I'm going to read some words to you. So, yeah, I have one that is a bit longer. First one and then another one. Thank you, Perona. Thank you. I shall. I'm going to. Just you wait and see. So, one is longer, and then three are of a shorter variety. So I don't know whether you would like the longer one for the first half. You're indeed helpful, thank you. Longer one for the first half, or three shorter ones for the first half. Do you want to like build up to the main event, or it's not really a main event? They're just four different short stories of varying lengths. We have shorter than long. Okay. I could just do them in the order in which they were even in the book. So let's do that. And this shall be the first one. Going into chat now. There you go. It's going to take about 10 minutes to read. I starred in Blood and Honey. This is a conspiracy theory you're spreading now. No, Stop. I've not even seen it. I barely know it exists. Right. Before the people who've already clicked on that finish reading the story before I've even begun, we should continue. We should continue? No, we should begin. Oh, good grief. Okay, it's going well. It's starting well. Right. Let's do a story. This is by Mark Twain. And this story is called My Watch, an Instructive Little Tale. My beautiful new watch had run 18 months without losing or gaining, and without breaking any part of its machinery or stopping. I had come to believe it infallible in its judgments about the time of day, and to consider its constitution and its anatomy imperishable. But at last, one night, I let it run down. I grieved about it as if it were a recognized messenger and forerunner of calamity. But by and by I cheered up, set the watch by guess, and commanded my bodings and superstitions to depart. Next day, I stepped into the chief jeweller's to set it by the exact time, and the head of the establishment took it out of my hand and proceeded to set it for me. Then he said, "She is 4 minutes slow. Regulator wants pushing up." I tried to stop him, tried to make him understand that the watch was kept perfect time, but no. All this human cabbage could see was that the watch was 4 minutes slow, and the regulator must be pushed up a little. And so, while I danced around him in anguish and implored him to let my watch alone, he calmly and cruelly did the shameful deed. My watch began to gain. It gained faster and faster day by day. Within the week, it sickened to a raging fever, and its pulse went up to 150 in the shade. At the end of 2 months, it had left all the timepieces of the town far in the rear, and was a fraction over 13 days ahead of the almanac. It was away into November, enjoying the snow, while the October leaves were still turning. It hurried up house rent, bills payable, and such things, in such a ruinous way that I could not abide it. I took it to the watchmaker to be regulated. He asked me if I had ever had it repaired. I said no, it had never needed any repairing. He looked a look of vicious happiness, and eagerly pried the watch open, and then put a small dice box into his eye and peered into its machinery. He said it wanted cleaning and oiling besides regulating. Come in a week. After being cleaned and oiled and regulated, my watch slowed down to that degree that it ticked like a tolling bell. I began to be left by trains. I failed all appointments. I got to missing my dinner. My watch strung out 3 days' grace to 4 and let me go to protest. I gradually drifted back into yesterday, then day before, then into last week, and by the comprehension came upon me that all solitary and alone I was lingering along in week before last, and the world was out of sight. I seemed to detect in myself a sort of sneaking fellow-feeling for the mummy in the museum, and a desire to swap news with him. I went to a watchmaker again. He took the watch all to pieces while I waited, and then said the barrel was swelled. He said he could reduce it in 3 days. After this, the watch averaged well, but nothing more. For half a day, it would go like the very mischief, and keep up such a barking and wheezing and whooping and sneezing and snorting that I could not hear myself think for the disturbance. And as long as it held out, there was not a watch in the land that stood any chance against it. But the rest of the day it would keep on slowing down and fooling along until all the clocks it had left behind caught up again. So at last, at the end of 24 hours, it would trot up to the judge's stand all right and just in time. It would show a fair and square average, and no man could say it had done more or less than its duty. But a correct average is only a mild virtue in a watch, and I took this instrument to another watchmaker. He said the king bolt was broken. I said I was glad it was nothing more serious. To tell the plain truth, I had no idea what the king bolt was, but I did not choose to appear ignorant to a stranger. He repaired the king bolt, but what the watch gained in one way, it lost in another. It would run a while, and then stop a while, and then run a while again, and so on, using its own discretion about the intervals. And every time it went off, it kicked back like a musket. I padded my breast for a few days, but finally took the watch to another watchmaker. He picked it all to pieces, and turned the ruin over and over under his glass, and then he said there appeared to be something the matter with the hair-trigger. He fixed it, and gave it a fresh start. It did well now, except that always at 10 minutes to 10 the hands would shut together like a pair of scissors, and from that time forth they would travel together. The oldest man in the world could not make head or tail of the time of day by such a watch, and so I went again to have the thing repaired. This person said that the crystal had got bent, and that the mainspring was not straight. He also remarked that part of the works needed half-soling. He made these things all right, and then my timepiece performed unexceptionably, save that, now and then, after working along quietly for nearly 8 hours, everything inside would let go all of a sudden and begin to buzz like a bee, and the hands would straightway begin to spin round and round so fast that their individuality was lost completely, and they simply seemed a delicate spider's web over the face and the watch. She would reel off the next 24 hours in 6 or 7 minutes, and then stop with a bang. I went with a heavy heart to one more watchmaker, and looked on while he took her to pieces. Then I prepared to cross-question him rigidly, for this thing was getting serious. The watch had cost $200 originally, and I seemed to have paid out $2,000 or $3,000 for repairs. While I waited and looked on, I presently recognized in this watchmaker an old acquaintance, a steamboat engineer of other days, and not a good engineer either. He examined all the parts carefully, just as the other watchmakers had done, and then delivered his verdict with the same confidence of manner. He said, "She makes too much steam. You want to hang the monkey wrench on the safety valve." I brained him on the spot and had him buried at my own expense. My Uncle William, now deceased, alas, used to say that a good horse was a good horse until it had run away once, and that a good watch was a good watch until the repairers got a chance at it. And he used to wonder what became of all the unsuccessful tinkers and gunsmiths and shoemakers and engineers and blacksmiths, but nobody could ever tell him. The end. That escalated quickly. Yeah. I get the feeling he's just here to vent some frustration. That's one way to deal with a sketchy repairman. Yup. So yeah, that was my watch. You really love that one? Good, because we have, well, I mean they vary in tone, the ones I've got tonight, but you know, frankly, the more of Twain that I've read, the more I've come to really like his style of writing, and I mean that as someone who hadn't read any Mark Twain before doing this. So it's not that I expected I wasn't going to like it or that it would be bad, but yeah, he, as he's known for, has an excellent turn of phrase. Definitely going to use human cabbage going forward. It's, yeah, if you like that, I'm trying to remember specific examples, but there's a lot of that kind of thing coming up. So, you know, you very much remind of the time shenanigans in House of the Borderlands. I had that exact thought while reading it earlier. I was like, or yesterday I think it was. I was like, oh, hey, this thematically kind of ties in quite nicely to some of the stuff that we've been doing before with House on the Borderlands and, you know, the Time Machine. Just going to check my mute button 1 second. Good. Right. The next story is linked at the top of chat, and I shall do my best to read it for you now. This channel supports time shenanigans. Oh yes, we do. Absolutely. This next story, also by Mark Twain. They're all by Mark Twain tonight. I don't need to say it, but I'm gonna. It's called Political Economy. Political economy is the basis of all good government. The wisest men of all ages have brought to bear upon this subject Here I was interrupted and informed that a stranger wished to see me down at the door. I went and confronted him and asked to know his business, struggling all the time to keep a tight rein on my seething political economy ideas and not let them break away from me or get tangled in their harness. And privately, I wished the stranger was in the bottom of the canal with a cargo of wheat on top of him. I was all in a fever, but he was cool. He said he was sorry to disturb me, but as he was passing he noticed that I needed some lightning rods. I said, Yes, go on, what about it? He said there was nothing about it in particular, nothing except that he would like to put them up for me. I am new to housekeeping, have been used to hotels and boarding houses all my life. Like anybody else of similar experience, I try to appear, to strangers, to be an old housekeeper. Consequently, I said, in an offhand way, that I had been intending for some time to have 6 or 8 lightning rods put up, but... The stranger started and looked inquiringly at me, but I was serene. I thought that if I chanced to make any mistakes, he would not catch me by my countenance. He said he would rather have my custom than any man's in town. I said, all right, and started off to wrestle with my great subject again, when he called me back and said it would be necessary to know exactly how many points I wanted put up, what parts of the house I wanted them on, and what quality of rod I preferred. It was close quarters for a man not used to the exigencies of housekeeping, but I went through creditably, and he probably never suspected that I was a novice. I told him to put up 8 points, and put them all on the roof, and use the best quality of rod. He said he could furnish the plain article at 20 cents a foot, coppered 25 cents, zinc-plated spiral twist at 30 cents, that would stop a streak of lightning any time, no matter where it was bound, and render its errand harmless and its further progress apocryphal. I said apocryphal was no slouch of a word emanating from the source it did, but, philology aside, I liked the spiral twist and would take that brand. Then he said he could make 250 feet answer, but to do it right and make the best job in town of it, and attract the admiration of the just and the unjust alike, and compel all parties to say they never saw a more symmetrical and hypothetical display of lightning rods since they were born, he supposed he really couldn't get along without 400, though he was not vindictive and trusted he was willing to try. I said, go ahead and use 400 and make any kind of a job he pleased out of it, but let me get back to my work. So I got rid of him at last, and now, after half an hour spent in getting my train of political economy thoughts coupled together again, I am ready to go on once more. Richest treasures of their genius, their experience of life and their learning, the great lights of commercial jurisprudence, international confraternity and biological deviation of all ages, all civilizations and all nationalities, from Zoroaster down to Horace Greeley, have... Here I was interrupted again and required to go down and confer further with the lightning rod man. I hurried off, boiling and surging with prodigious thoughts wombed in words of such majesty that each one of them was in itself a straggling procession of syllables that might be 15 minutes passing a given point, and once more I confronted him. He, so calm and sweet, I, so hot and frenzied. He was standing in the contemplative attitude of the Colossus of Rhodes, with one foot on my infant tuberose, and the other among my pansies, his hands in his hips, his hat brim tilted forward, one eye shut and the other gazing critically and admiringly in the direction of my principal chimney. He said now there was a state of things to make a man glad to be alive, and added, I leave it to you if you ever saw anything more deliriously picturesque than 8 lightning rods on one chimney. I said I had no present recollection of anything that transcended it. He said that in his opinion nothing on earth but Niagara Falls was superior to it in the way of natural scenery. All that was needed now, he verily believed, to make my house a perfect balm to the eye, was to kind of touch up the other chimneys a little, and thus add to the generous coup d'oeil a soothing uniformity of achievement which would allay the excitement naturally consequent upon the coup d'etat. I asked him if he learned to talk out of a book, and if I could borrow it anywhere. He smiled pleasantly, and said that his manner of speaking was not taught in books, and that nothing but familiarity with lightning could enable a man to handle his conversational style with impunity. He then figured up an estimate, and said that about 8 more rods scattered about my roof would fix me right, and he guessed 500 feet of stuff would do it, and added that the first 8 had got a little the start of him, so to speak, and used up a mere trifle of material more than he had calculated on, 100 feet or along there. I said I was in a dreadful hurry, and I wished we could get this business permanently mapped out so that I could go on with my work. He said I could have put up those 8 rods and marched off about my business. Some men would have done it. But no, I said to myself, this man is a stranger to me, and I will die before I'll wrong him. There ain't lightning rods enough on that house, and for one I'll never stir out of tracks till I've done as I would be done by, and told him so. Stranger, my duty is accomplished. If the recalcitrant and dephlogistic messenger of heaven strikes your... There now, there, I said. Put on the other 8, add 500 feet of spiral twist. Do anything and everything you want to, but calm your sufferings and try to keep your feelings where you can reach them with the dictionary. Meanwhile, if we understand each other now, I will go to work again. I think I have been sitting here a full hour this time, trying to get back to where I was when my train of thought was broken up by the last interruption. But I believe I have accomplished it at last, and may venture to proceed again. Wrestled with this great subject, and the greatest among them have found it a worthy adversary, and one that always comes up fresh and smiling after every throw. The great Confucius said that he would rather be a profound political economist than chief of police. Cicero frequently said that political economy was the grandest consummation that the human mind was capable of consuming, and even our own Greeley has said, vaguely but forcibly, that political... Here the lightning rod man sent up another call for me. I went down in a state of mind bordering on impatience. He said he would rather have died than interrupt me, but when he was employed to do a job, and that job was expected to be done in a clean, workmanlike manner, and when it was finished and fatigue urged him to seek the rest and recreation he stood so much in need of, and he was about to do it, but looked up and saw at a glance that all the calculations had been a little out, and if a thunderstorm were to come up, and that house which he felt a personal interest in stood there with nothing on earth to protect it but 16 lightning rods. "Let us have peace," I shrieked. "Put up 150, put some on the kitchen, put a dozen on the barn, put a couple on the cow, put one on the cook, scatter them all over the persecuted place till it looks like a zinc-plated spiral-twisted silver-mounted cane-brake. Move! Use up all the material you can get your hands on, and when you run out of lightning rods, put up ramrods, camrods, stair rods, pistol rods, anything that will pander to your dismal appetite for artificial scenery and bring respite to my raging brain and healing to my lacerated soul." Wholly unmoved, further than to smile sweetly, this iron being simply turned back his wristbands daintily, and said he would now proceed to hump himself. Well, all that was nearly 3 hours ago. It is questionable whether I am calm enough yet to write on the noble theme of political economy, but I cannot resist the desire to try, for it is the one subject that is nearest to my heart and dearest to my brain of all this world's philosophy. Economy is heaven's best boon to man. When the loose but gifted Byron lay in his Venetian exile, he observed that, if it could be granted him to go back and live his misspent life over again, he would give his lucid and unintoxicated intervals to the composition not of frivolous rhymes, but of essays upon political economy. Washington loved this exquisite science. Such names as Baker, Beckwith, Judson, Smith are imperishably linked with it, and even the imperial Homer in the 9th book of the Iliad has said, "Fiat justitia ruat coelum, post mortem unum antebellum, hic jacet hoc ex parte res, politicum economico est." The grandeur of these conceptions of the old poet, together with the felicity of the wording which clothes them, and the sublimity of the imagery whereby they are illustrated, have singled out that stanza and made it more celebrated than any that ever... Now, not a word out of you, not a single word. Just state your bill and relapse into impenetrable silence for ever and ever on these premises. $900? Is that all? This check for the amount will be honoured at any respectable bank in America. What is that multitude of people gathered in the street for? How? Looking at the lightning rods? Bless my life, did they never see any lightning rods before? Never saw such a stack of them on top of one establishment, did I understand you to say? I will step down and critically observe this popular ebullition of ignorance. 3 days later, we are all about worn out. For 24 hours our bristling premises were the talk and wonder of the town. The theatres languished, for their happiest scenic inventions were tame and commonplace compared with my lightning rods. Our street was blocked night and day with spectators, and among them were many who came from the country to see. It was a blessed relief on the second day when a thunderstorm came up, and the lightning began to go for my house, as the historian Josephus quaintly phrases it. 1 second. Excuse me. It cleared the galleries, so to speak. In 5 minutes there was not a spectator within half a mile of my place, but all the high houses about the distance were full, windows, roof, and all. And well they might be, for all the falling stars and 4th of July fireworks of a generation, put together and rained down simultaneously out of heaven in one brilliant shower upon one helpless roof, would not have any advantage of the pyrotechnic display that was making my house so magnificently conspicuous in the general gloom of the storm. By actual count, the lightning struck at my establishment 764 times in 40 minutes, but tripped on one of those faithful rods every time, and slid down the spiral twist and shot into the earth before it probably had time to be surprised at the way the thing was done. And through all that bombardment, only one patch of slates was ripped up, and that was because, for a single instant, the rods in the vicinity were transporting all the lightning they could possibly accommodate. Well, nothing was ever seen like it since the world began. For 1 whole day and night not a member of my family stuck his head out of the window, but he got his hair snatched off it as smooth as a billiard ball, and if the reader will believe me, not one of us ever dreamt of stirring abroad. But at last the awful siege came to an end, because there was absolutely no more electricity left in the clouds above us within grappling distance of my insatiable rods. Then I sallied forth, and gathered daring workmen together, and not a bite or a nap did we take till the premises were utterly stripped of all their terrific armament, except just 3 rods on the house, 1 on the kitchen, and 1 on the barn. And, behold, these remain there even unto this day. And then, and not till then, the people ventured to use our street again. I will remark here, in passing, that during that fearful time I did not continue my essay upon political economy. I am not even yet settled enough in nerve and brain to resume it. To whom it may concern, parties having need of 3,211 feet of best quality zinc-plated spiral twist lightning rod stuff, and 1,631 silver-tipped points, all in tolerable repair, and, although much worn by use, still equal to any ordinary emergency, can hear of a bargain by addressing the publisher. The end. I enjoy that one. That one. It's I don't know, it's just very fun. In particular, the line, like what was it? How did he put it? Was he? I asked him if he learned to talk out of a book, and if I could borrow it anywhere. Is a great setup to the put down, and then calm your sufferings and try to keep your feelings where you can reach them with the dictionary. Yeah. Yeah, keep your feelings where you can reach them with the dictionary is such a good line. He's so ridiculous, and you sympathise so hard with the frustration at getting interrupted like that. Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I feel in particular this is a real shame that Lucy's not here to hear this one, because she's obviously they've had like builders in her house for the last few weeks doing stuff, and her trying to get anything done while there's just noise and interruptions and stuff is extremely relatable. But like, yeah, it's just the escalating rage that is bubbling through it it's so good. This is ADHD rep. Yeah. Like, it doesn't even have to be. It's not even a big sound. Just sometimes it's your own thoughts just going, hey, yeah, but what about? Like, oh, okay, yeah, no, hang on. I had a thought. What? 3 hours later. Oh, it's lunch. So, yeah. Or just like, I feel like a drink. I should get up. Half an hour later. Still haven't done it. And so on and so forth. And I don't know. Cat owners and ADHD suspects. Hey Joe, welcome in. Think you're a bit late? Nah, you've arrived exactly on time. Although you've missed 2 stories so far. Because I'm banging through some short Mark Twain ones at the moment. But you have missed a story about Mark Twain and his watch, and then Mark Twain and the Lightning Conductors. It's not a band, although that's a pretty good band actually. But a salesman selling lightning conductors to go on the roof of his house. Right between 2 stories is pretty well timed. Well, exactly. Yes, that is true. The next one is a little bit more of a parable. If anyone's familiar with and listened to the first of these, I'm just going to put it in chat. Sorry. What do you think I'm doing here? To which I'm just typing. There we go. There's the title, and there's the story. Yeah. So on my previous stream, reading Mark Twain short stories from this very book, I believe I read. I'm just going to check. Yeah, The Story of the Bad Little Boy, which was, kind of a sad, kind of depressing, I guess, kind of satirical look at the sort of the Sunday school Bible stories that I'm sure a few people in chat are familiar with. Not Bible stories and so, but sort of the Sunday school stories that are told to kids about, if you do the good things, then the good things will happen back to you, so you should do the good things so the good things happen back. And if you do the bad things, then bad things will happen to you, and, divine justice will be meted out upon you. And if you, push people over, then you'll break your arm. Or if you steal things, then you'll wind up poor. That karma is my boyfriend, etc. Yeah, that, like, divine justice is waiting to smite you down if you do the bad things. And the story of the bad little boy is about someone who did all those bad and horrible things and ended up rewarded and punished for it by life. And hey, maybe we should, do better ourselves about, weeding out this sort of behaviour, and not just waiting for some unseen being in the clouds to dispense justice, And this is sort of a counterpart to that. This is the story of the good little boy who does all the good things, and according to the books that you read in Sunday school. And there is a bit of an unfortunate fate for some dogs contained within this story, but then I feel like, due to the nature of it being very much a sort of a parable, and the nature of what happens, it's a lot less traumatic than, say, some of the other stuff we've read. Not looking at you, William Hope Hodgson, but definitely looking at you. Like, it's less of that. But I thought I would just give that little bit of a forewarning. So, let's read a story and learn about the story of the good little boy. Once there was a good little boy by the name of Jacob Livens. He always obeyed his parents, no matter how absurd and unreasonable their demands were, and he always learned his book and never was late at Sabbath school. He would not play hooky, even when his sober judgment told him it was the most profitable thing he could do. None of the other boys could ever make that boy out. He acted so strangely. He wouldn't lie, no matter how convenient it was. He just said it was wrong to lie, and that was sufficient for him. And he was so honest that he was simply ridiculous. The curious ways that Jacob had surpassed everything. He wouldn't play marbles on Sunday. He wouldn't rob birds' nests. He wouldn't give hot pennies to organ grinders' monkeys. He didn't seem to take any interest in any kind of rational amusement. So the other boys used to try to reason it out and come to an understanding with him, but they couldn't arrive at any satisfactory conclusion. As I said before, they could only figure out a sort of vague idea that he was afflicted, and so they took him under their protection and never allowed any harm to come to him. This good little boy read all the Sunday school books. They were his greatest delight. This was the whole secret of it. He believed in the good little boys they put in the Sunday school books. He had every confidence in them. He longed to come across one of them alive once, but he never did. They all died before his time, maybe. Whenever he read about a particularly good one, he turned over quickly to the end to see what became of him, because he wanted to travel thousands of miles and gaze on him. But it wasn't any use. That good little boy always died in the last chapter, and there was a picture at the funeral with all his relations and the Sunday school children standing around the grave in pantaloons that were too short and bonnets that were too large, and everybody crying into handkerchiefs that had as much as a yard and a half of stuff in them. He was always headed off in this way. He never could see one of those good little boys on account of his always dying in the last chapter. Jacob had a noble ambition to be put in a Sunday school book. He wanted to be put in with pictures representing him gloriously declining to lie to his mother, and her weeping for joy about it, and pictures representing him standing on the doorstep giving a penny to a poor beggar woman with 6 children, and telling her to spend it freely, but not to be extravagant, because extravagance is a sin, and pictures of him magnanimously refusing to tell on the bad boy who always lay in wait for him around the corner as he came from school and welted him over the head with a lath, and then chased him home saying "Hi, hi" as he proceeded. That was the ambition of young Jacob Livens. He wished to be put in a Sunday school book. It made him feel a little uncomfortable sometimes when he reflected that the good little boys always died. He loved to live, you know, and this was the most unpleasant feature about being a Sunday school book boy. He knew it was not healthy to be good. He knew it was more fatal than consumption to be so supernaturally good as the boys in the books were. He knew that none of them had ever been able to stand it long, and it pained him to think that if they put him in a book he wouldn't ever see it, or even if they did get the book out before he died, it wouldn't be popular without any picture of his funeral in the back part of it. It couldn't be much of a Sunday school book that couldn't tell about the advice he gave to the community when he was dying. So, at last, of course, he had to make up his mind to do the best he could under the circumstances, to live right, and hang on as long as he could, and have his dying speech all ready when his time came. But somehow nothing ever went right with this good little boy. Nothing ever turned out with him the way it turned out with the good little boys in the books. They always had a good time, and the bad boys had the broken legs. But in his case there was a screw loose somewhere, and it all happened just the other way. When he found Jim Blake stealing apples, and went under the tree to read to him about the bad little boy who fell out of a neighbour's apple tree and broke his arm, Jim fell out of the tree, too, but he fell on him and broke his arm, and Jim wasn't hurt at all. Jacob couldn't understand that. There wasn't anything in the books like it. And once, when some bad boys pushed a blind man over in the mud, and Jacob ran to help him and receive his blessing, the blind man did not give him any blessing at all, but whacked him over the head with his stick and said he would like to catch him shoving him again, and then pretending to help him up. This was not in accordance with any of the books. Jacob looked them all over to see. One thing that Jacob wanted to do was find a lame dog that hadn't any place to stay, and was hungry and persecuted, and bring him home and pet him and have that dog's imperishable gratitude. And at last he found one and was happy, and he brought him home and fed him. But when he was going to pet him, the dog flew at him and tore the clothes off him except those that were in front, and made a spectacle of him that was astonishing. He examined authorities, but he could not understand the matter. It was of the same breed of dogs that was in the books, but it acted very differently. Whatever this boy did, he got into trouble. The very things the boys in the books got rewarded for turned out to be about the most unprofitable things he could invest in. Once, when he was on his way to Sunday school, he saw some bad boys starting off pleasuring in a sailboat. He was filled with consternation because he knew from his reading that boys who went sailing on Sunday invariably got drowned. So he ran out on a raft to warn them, but a log turned with him and slid him out into the river. A man got him out pretty soon, and the doctor pumped the water out of him and gave him a fresh start with his bellows, but he caught cold and lay sick abed 9 weeks. But the most unaccountable thing about it was that the bad boys in the boat had a good time all day, and then reached home alive and well in the most surprising manner. Jacob Blivens said there was nothing like these things in the books. He was perfectly dumbfounded. When he got well, he was a little discouraged, but he resolved to keep on trying anyhow. He knew that so far his experiences wouldn't do to go in a book, but he hadn't yet reached the allotted term of life for good little boys, and he hoped to be able to make a record yet if he could hold on till his time was fully up. If everything else failed, he had his dying speech to fall back on. He examined his authorities, and found that it was now time for him to go to sea as a cabin boy. He called on a ship captain and made his application, and when the captain asked for his recommendations, he proudly drew out a tract and pointed to the word Jacob Blivens from his affectionate teacher. But the captain was a coarse, vulgar man, and he said, "Oh, that be blowed, that wasn't any proof that he knew how to wash dishes or handle a slush bucket, and he guessed he didn't want him." This was altogether the most extraordinary thing that ever happened to Jacob in all his life. A compliment from a teacher on a tract had never failed to move the tenderest emotions of ship captains, and open the way to all officers of honour and profit in their gift. It never had in any book that ever he had read. He could hardly believe his senses. This boy always had a hard time of it. Nothing ever came out according to the authorities with him. At last, one day, when he was around hunting up bad little boys to admonish, he found a lot of them in the old iron foundry fixing up a little joke on 14 or 15 dogs, which they had tied together in long procession, and were going to ornament with empty nitroglycerin cans made fast to their tails. Jacob's heart was touched. He sat down on one of those cans, for he never minded grease when duty was before him, and he took hold of the foremost dog by the collar, and turned his reproving eye upon wicked Tom Jones. But just in that moment, Alderman McWelter, full of wrath, stepped in. All the bad boys ran away, but Jacob Blivens rose in conscious innocence and began one of those stately little Sunday school book speeches which always commence with, "Oh, sir!" in dead opposition to the fact that no boy, good or bad, ever starts a remark with, "Oh, sir!" But the alderman never waited to hear the rest. He took Jacob Blivens by the ear and turned him around and hit him a whack in the rear with the flat of his hand. And in an instant that good little boy shot out through the roof and soared away toward the sun, with the fragments of those 15 dogs stringing after him like the tail of a kite. And there wasn't a sign of that alderman or the iron forge or the iron foundry left on the face of the earth. And as for young Jacob Blivens, he never got a chance to make his last dying speech after all his trouble fixing it up, unless he made it to the birds, because although the bulk of him came down all right in a treetop in an adjoining county, the rest of him was apportioned around among 4 townships, and so they had to hold 5 inquests on him to find out whether he was dead or not and how it occurred. You never saw a boy scattered so. Thus perished the good little boy who did the best he could, but didn't come out according to the books. Every boy who ever did as he did prospered, except him. His case is truly remarkable. It will probably never be accounted for. And there was a note at the bottom, this glycerin catastrophe is borrowed from a floating newspaper item whose author's name I would give if I knew it. Mark Twain. The end. So... I hope that was quite like, I hope that was right for everyone. I don't know. I struggled to keep it together for that last bit, just from the way that he describes, you know, like hit him with a whack on the rear with the flat of his hand, and in an instant that good boy shot out to the roof and soared away towards the sun. Like, poor Jacob Livens. Yeah. Slapped into several counties. It's, I don't know. Again, the sort of the parable-like nature of it, kind of imitative and making fun of the kind of, yeah, these like, if you do the good things, then good things will happen to you, so you should only ever do the good things in order to reap your reward of the good. And it just becomes expecting life to be a transaction. And the only reason you should do good things is because you will get good things back, not because it's the right thing to do, and actually doing good stuff is difficult. It's not easy being a good little boy. Yes, exactly. Yeah, I don't know. I find that one very funny. But yeah, that actually brings us quite neatly. Well, quite neat. 5 minutes. We can do that for 5 minutes. Oh, Dave, hello. You've got here just in time for the break. Oh no. But, well, I mean 5 minutes or so until the break, as I just quickly skimmed through the book to find what will be the story for the second half. But yes, hello, welcome in, Dave and Raiders. He was a narc? Yeah, exactly. You love breaks? Excellent. Well, then you've come to the right place. How successfully upped were the plates? Oh, Yumika, yeah, I saw you sneak in right at the start there. It is good to see you. Got to be off again? You should be a old goblin? Nice. I hope that you are well and things are well. But yes, welcome in, Raiders. Hello. The voice you are hearing, I hope you didn't. I hope that burp didn't come through on the mic. Is Sam. Hi. You probably all know me because I mod in Dave's chat and do various things in various spaces. You had pastas. Lovely. Yeah, tonight I am reading some short stories from Mark Twain. We have already had 3. We have had a story about his new watch, his watch that was new at one time and then got repaired and was bad. It's the way he tells them. And then we have had a story about political economy, which is definitely not a story about, well, I guess not even a dodgy lightning rod salesman, just a very enthusiastic and persistent lightning rod salesman who just kept interrupting him while he was trying to write an essay on political economy, which is very funny and has some wonderful lines in it. Oh, it's so witty and droll, you would love it. Telemarketers before they existed, exactly, door-to-door telemarketers. And you have just missed the story of the good little boy, which is the story of one Jacob Livens, who didn't end up as well as he thought, let's say. Sort of a nitroglycerin smack on the arse launched him into space. But it's very funny. So, yeah, that was that. And I'm going to pop off on a quick 5-minute break. Ninja? What? What? But yes, what? Did I? Trying to think about. No, don't get it. Oh, Lady Mephistopheles, hello. Good time zones. Doots were dooted. Yes, were you? Oh, yes, yes. Tyler Blevins. Not yes. I get. Okay, I get you now. Thank you. I'm even sat here in my Twitch hoodie, and I am old and do not. I mean, Ninja's not even a youth reference now. Oh, good grief. Hi. I'm gonna go age. in the break. Yeah, Lady Mephistopheles, you met up with Lucy today, and did you go to the concert she was playing at? If so, that's super cool. I hope it was good. I hope you had a good time. Neat. But yeah, I'm going to go on a break. You can't stop me. And we'll be back in 5 minutes for more Mark Twain with a story called The Loves of Alonzo, Fitz, Clarence and Rosannah Ethelton. And it's about as serious as the name indicates. And I'll see you back here in 5 minutes. Bye for now. Bye. back. Hello. Wait, hang on. Is there like a load of extra noise coming through the mic? One sec. I'm just going to go quiet. Yeah, where's that all coming from? Why so noisy? Do I turn my gain up? Hold up. There should be... There's... Huh. Weird. It should have noise... Well, no, it shouldn't have noise. I literally just checked. It doesn't have noise suppression on it. Which I thought I did have, but no, I think I've got that on gaming rather than this, and we just use the background rain noise instead. That seems better. Okay, I might just had it a little bit closer to the laptop and it's picking up some extra fan noise. Whoops. Oh well, it seems better now. I think. I'll give it one last try. Let me know if there's like extra bonus noise coming through. Yeah, that's now dropping down lower than the noise from the background audio, so tell all the Twain fans to hush. No, they're the only thing that like give me joy. Right, on that sad note, yeah, how are you doing? Are we good? How's everyone? Calming rain sounds or crackling fire? Yeah, I have in my mind a different idea for what I would, in like an ideal world with like a sizable budget, I would love to make something very different for this background, but very cool. And it's required me, and it would probably need to be me. I think I know Arian had a crack at making like a bit of a vague mock-up of like one of the ideas for it, but I feel like it's something that would require me to actually know how to do it and make it so that I could update and maintain it. You're about halfway through your journey to the train station, thanks to the company. Hey, yeah, have a safe journey, safe rest of the evening. And you know, if you're back while the stream's still on, let us know when you get back. How is Joey doing? Weirdly, he's not actually been disturbing me this evening. He's probably somewhere else, hiding or snuggled up. But he's fine. He's good. You have a lot more experience with Unity now. Ooh, except everyone's moved away from Unity after their horrible, horrible business decisions last year. And I was thinking of possibly trying to learn. I'm gonna call it Godot. Not the. It's another like game engine environment. GODOT, and I call it Godot, like the play, not Godot, like an American, or Godot, as I think people refer to it when you're actually working in it. But neither of those options appeal to me. So yeah, I was thinking of possibly trying to learn that sometime. You do not have the mental capacity to learn something new? Absolutely. Nor me, frankly, which is the problem. But yeah, maybe one day I will actually sort myself out enough to do something like that, and it'll be cool, and you'll all go, no, actually I don't like this, we want the old one back, and I will be sad. Anyway, shall we have another story? I'm going to sit here rambling. I don't know how long this one's going to take. It's probably not going to take us up until usual stream end time. One sec. If I'm just counting game engines based on commercial ethics, you're going to have a hard time making anything. Okay, yeah, true, but like, yes, okay, fair, but how about what, look, yeah, but Unity's was particularly, like, egregiously bad. The whole, we will, like, retroactively charge you money for installs of games, things that, like, we want you to pay us a cut for every product that you have sold with this previously, even including now, on like a minimum fee. So even if your game is free, we will still expect money from you. And it's like, what? How are you going to track this? Oh, don't worry, we have ways and methods of tracking this. Hang on, are you installing like extra stuff? in this that no, what? And you're just like, no, what? No, no, we're not, no, absolutely not doing anything shady or weird about this. Oh, you don't like this? Okay, we'll walk it back. Please don't leave us. And yeah, that was, like, none of them are good, but that was immediately put into the bottom of the pile. We're keeping the stream on while walking. You won't be home till about 5 a.m. Oof, okay, that is a trek. I hope it's been a good day. Yeah, I hope it's been worthwhile. I won't do a 7-hour stream, but what about a 10-hour stream? No, stop. Shush. Yeah, wow. Like, Unity's business practices, and all spearheaded by John Riccatello, which is a name that's come up a few times in my, I can say, peering over the fence at the games industry career. I have no career, and I do not work anywhere close enough to the games industry for that to be at all a relevant description, but I've followed it a lot over the years, and John Riccatello is not someone whose business you ever want to be involved with. But anyway, I'm going to get off into subjects. Ask me about Jamie Oliver and food poverty. As an interested observer, yes, exactly. Absolutely worth the hours and trains. Gdansk is pretty and you had awesome company. Ah, bless. Yeah, Lucy said it's a really nice place. Right. I'm just quickly going to reconfigure my lights so that I do not have a glare. Trying to avoid just a big old reflection up into my eyes. Right. If we are ready, should we have tonight's final story? Which, unless anything changes in the next few seconds, will be titled The Loves of Alonzo, Fitz, Clarence, and Rosannah Ethelton. And feels like a decent accompaniment for the Pride and Prejudice that Lucy started the other day. But 1 second. And I'm back. Hello. I shall begin. Part 1. It was well along in the forenoon of a bitter winter's day. The town of Eastport, in the state of Maine, lay buried under a deep snow that was newly fallen. The customary bustle of the streets was wanting. One could look long distances down them and see nothing but a dead white emptiness, with silence to match. Of course, I did not mean that you could see the silence. No, you could only hear it. The sidewalks were merely long, deep ditches with steep snow walls on either side. Here and there you might hear the faint, far scrape of a wooden shovel, and if you were quick enough you might catch a glimpse of a distant black figure stooping and disappearing in one of those ditches, and reappearing the next moment with a motion which you would know meant the heaving out of a shovelful of snow. But you needed to be quick, for that black figure would not linger, but would soon drop the shovel and scud for the house, thrashing itself with its arms to warm them. Yes, it was too venomously cold for snow shovelers or anybody else to stay out long. Presently the sky darkened. Then the wind rose and began to blow in fitful, vigorous gusts, which sent clouds of powdery snow aloft, and straight ahead, and everywhere. Under the impulse of one of these gusts, great white drifts banked themselves like graves across the streets. A moment later another gust shifted them around the other way, driving a fine spray of snow from their sharp crests as the gale drives the spume flakes from wave crests at sea. A third gust swept the place as clean as your hand, if it saw fit. This was fooling. This was play, but each and all of the gusts dumped some snow into the sidewalk ditches, for that was business. Alonzo Fitz Clarence was sitting in his snug and elegant little parlour, in a lovely blue silk dressing gown, with cuffs and facings of crimson satin, elaborately quilted. The remains of his breakfast were before him, and the dainty and costly little table service added a harmonious charm to the grace, beauty, and richness of the fixed appointments of the room. A cheery fire was blazing in the hearth. A furious gust of wind shook the windows, and a great wave of snow washed against them with a drenching sound, so to speak. The handsome young bachelor murmured, "That means no going out today. Well, I am content. But what to do for company? Mother is well enough, Aunt Susan is well enough, but these, like the poor, I have with me always. On so grim a day as this, one needs a new interest, a fresh element, to whet the dull edge of captivity. That was very neatly said, but it doesn't mean anything. One doesn't want the edge of captivity sharpened up, you know, but just the reverse." He glanced at his pretty French mantel clock. "That clock's wrong again. That clock hardly ever knows what time it is, and when it does know, it lies about it, which amounts to the same thing. Alfred!" There was no answer. "Alfred!" Good servant, but as uncertain as the clock. Alonzo touched an electric bell button in the wall. He waited a moment, then touched it again. Waited a few moments more, and said, "Battery out of order, no doubt, but now that I have started, I will find out what time it is." He stepped to a speaking tube in the wall, blew its whistle, and called, "Mother!" and repeated it twice. "Well, that's no use. Mother's battery is out of order, too. Can't raise anybody downstairs. That is plain." He sat down at a rosewood desk, leaned his chin on the left-hand edge of it, and spoke as if to the floor. "Aunt Susan?" A low, pleasant voice answered. "Is that you, Alonzo?" "Yes, I am too lazy and comfortable to go downstairs. I am in extremity, and I can't seem to scare up any help." "Dear me, what is the matter?" "Matter enough, I can tell you." "Oh, don't keep me in suspense, dear. What is it?" "I want to know what time it is." "You abominable boy, what a turn you did give me. Is that all?" "All, on my honour. Calm yourself. Tell me the time and receive my blessing." "Just 5 minutes after 9. "No charge. Keep your blessing." "Thanks. It wouldn't have impoverished me, Auntie, nor so enriched you that I could live without... It wouldn't have impoverished me, Auntie, nor so enriched you that you could live without other means." He got up, murmuring, "Just 5 minutes after 9, and faced his clock. "Ah," said he, "you are doing better than usual. You are only 34 minutes wrong. Let me see. 33 and 21 are 54. 4 times 54 are 236. 1 off leaves 235. That's right." He turned the hands of his clock forward till they marked 25 minutes to 1, and said, "Now see if you can't keep right for a while, else I'll raffle you." He sat down at the desk again, and said, "Aunt Susan?" "Yes, dear." "Had breakfast?" "Yes, indeed, an hour ago." "Busy?" "No, except sewing. Why?" "Got any company?" "No, but I expect some at 9:30. "I wish I did. I'm lonesome. I want to talk to somebody." "Very well, talk to me. But this is very private." "Don't be afraid. Talk right along. There's nobody here but me." "I hardly know whether to venture or not, but—" "But what? Oh, don't stop there. You know you can trust me, Alonzo. You know you can." "I feel it, Aunt, but this is very serious. It affects me deeply. Me and all the family, even the whole community." "Oh, Alonzo, tell me. I will never breathe a word of it. What is it?" "Aunt, if I might dare—" "Oh, please go on. I love you and feel for you. Tell me all. Confide in me. What is it?" "The weather." "Plague take the weather. I don't see how you can have the heart to serve me so long." There, Auntie dear, I'm sorry. I am, on my honour. I won't do it again. Do you forgive me?" "Yes, since you seem so sincere about it, though I know I oughtn't to." You will fool me again as soon as I have forgotten this time. No, I won't. Honour bright. But such weather, oh, such weather. You've got to keep your spirits up artificially. It is snowy and blowy and gusty and bitter cold. How's the weather with you? Warm and rainy and melancholy. The mourners go about the streets with their umbrellas running streams from the end of every whalebone. There's an elevated double pavement of umbrellas stretching down the sides of the streets as far as I can see. I've got a fire for cheerfulness, and the windows open to keep cool, but it is vain. It is useless. Nothing comes in but the balmy breath of December, and its burden of mocking odours from the flowers that possess the realm outside, and rejoice in their lawless profusion whilst the spirit of man is low, and flaunt their gaudy splendours in his face, while his soul is clothed in sackcloth and ashes, and his heart breaketh. Alonzo opened his lips to say, "You ought to print that and get it framed," but checked himself, for he heard his aunt speaking to someone else. He went and stood at the window and looked out upon the wintry prospect. The storm was driving the snow before it more furiously than ever. Window shutters were slamming and banging. A forlorn dog, with bowed head and tail withdrawn from service, was pressing his quaking body against a windward wall for shelter and protection. A young girl was ploughing knee-deep through the drifts, with her face turned from the blast and the cape of her waterproof blowing straight rearward over her head. Alonzo shuddered, and said with a sigh, "Better the slop and the sultry rain, and even the insolent flowers, than this." He turned from the window, moved a step, and stopped in a listening attitude. The faint, sweet notes of a familiar song caught his ear. He remained there with his head unconsciously bent forward, drinking in the melody, stirring neither hand nor foot, hardly breathing. There was a blemish in the execution of the song, but to Alonzo it seemed an added charm instead of a defect. This blemish consisted of a marked flatting of the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh notes of the refrain or chorus of the piece. When the music ended, Alonzo drew a deep breath and said, "Ah, I never have heard 'In the Sweet By and By' sung like that before." He stepped quickly to the desk, listened a moment, and said in a guarded, confidential voice, "Auntie, who is this divine singer?" "She is the company I was expecting. Stays with me a month or two. I will introduce you, Miss—" "For goodness' sake, wait a moment, Aunt Susan. You never stop to think what you are about." He flew to his bedchamber, and returned in a moment perceptibly changed in his outward appearance, and remarking snappishly, "Hang it, she would have introduced me to this angel in that sky-blue dressing-gown with red-hot lapels. Women never think when they get a-going." He hastened and stood by the desk, and said eagerly, "Now, Auntie, I am ready," and fell to smiling and bowing with all the persuasiveness and elegance that were in him. "Very well. Miss Rosannah Ethelton, let me introduce you to my favourite nephew, Mr. Alonzo Fitz Clarence. There, you are both good people, and I like you, so I am going to trust you together while I attend to a few household affairs. Sit down, Rosannah, sit down. Sit down, Rosannah. Sit down, Alonzo. Goodbye, I shan't be gone long." Alonzo had been bowing and smiling all the while, and motioning imaginary young ladies to sit down in imaginary chairs, but now he took a seat himself, mentally saying, "Oh, this is luck! Let the winds blow now, and the snow drive, and the heavens frown. Little I care." While these young people chat themselves into an acquaintanceship, let us take the liberty of inspecting the sweeter and fairer of the two. She sat alone, at her graceful ease, in a richly furnished apartment which was manifestly the private parlour of a refined and sensible lady, if signs and symbols may go for anything. For instance, by a low, comfortable chair stood a dainty, top-heavy workstand, whose summit was a fancifully embroidered shallow basket with vari-coloured crewels and other strings and odds and ends protruding from under the gaping lid, and hanging down in negligent profusion. On the floor lay bright shreds of turkey red, Prussian blue, and kindred fabrics, bits of ribbon, a spool or two, a pair of scissors, and a roll or so of tinted silk and stuffs. On a luxurious sofa, upholstered with some sort of soft Indian goods wrought in black and gold threads, interwebbed with other threads not so pronounced in colour, lay a great square of coarse white stuff, upon whose surface a rich bouquet of flowers was growing, under the deft cultivation of the crochet needle. The household cat was asleep on this work of art. In a bay window stood an easel with an unfurnished picture on it, and a palette and brushes on a chair beside it. There were books everywhere, Robertson's sermons, Tennyson, Moody and Sankey, Hawthorne, Rab and his friends, cookbooks, prayer books, pattern books, and books about all kinds of odious and exasperating poetry, of course. There was a piano, with a deck-load of music, and more in a tender. There was a great plenty of pictures on the walls, on the shelves of the mantelpiece, and around generally, where coins of vantage offered were statuettes, and quaint and pretty gimcracks, and rare and costly specimens of peculiarly devilish china. The bay window gave upon a garden that was ablaze with foreign and domestic flowers and flowering shrubs. But the sweet young girl was the daintiest thing these premises, within or without, could offer for contemplation. Delicately chiselled features of Grecian cast, her complexion the pure snow of a japonica that is receiving a faint reflected enrichment from some scarlet neighbour of the garden, great soft blue eyes fringed with long curving lashes, an expression made up of the trustfulness of a child and the gentleness of a fawn, a beautiful head crowned with its own prodigal gold, a lithe and rounded figure whose every attitude and movement was instinct with native grace. Her dress and adornment were marked by that exquisite harmony that can come only of a fine natural taste perfected by culture. Her gown was of a simple magenta tulle, cut bias, traversed by 3 rows of light blue flounces with the selvage edges turned up, with ashes of roses, chenille, overdress of dark bay tarlatan, and scarlet satin lambrequins. Corn-coloured polonaise, en panier, looped with mother-of-pearl buttons and silver cord, and hauled aft and made fast by buff velvet lashings, basque of lavender reps, picked out with Valenciennes, low neck short sleeves, maroon velvet necktie edged with delicate pink silk, inside handkerchief of some simple 3-ply ingrain fabric of a soft saffron tint, coral bracelets and locket chain, coiffure of forget-me-nots and lilies of the valley massed around a noble calla. This was all. Yet, even in this subdued attire, she was divinely beautiful. Then what must she have been when adorned for the festival or the ball? All this time she had been busily chatting with Alonzo, unconscious of our inspection. The minutes still sped, and still she talked, but by and by she happened to look up and saw the clock. A crimson blush sent its rich flood through her cheeks, and she exclaimed, "There, good-bye, Mr. Fitz, Clarence. I must go now." She sprang from her chair with such haste that she hardly heard the young man's answering good-bye. She stood radiant, graceful, beautiful, and gazed, wondering, upon the accusing clock. Presently her pouting lips parted, and she said, 5 minutes after 11. Nearly 2 hours, and it did not seem 20 minutes. Oh dear, what will he think of me? At the self-same moment, Alonzo was staring at his clock, and presently said, 25 minutes to 3. Nearly 2 hours, and I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it was 2 minutes. Is it possible that this clock is humbugging again? Miss Ethelton, just 1 moment, please. Are you there yet? Yes, but be quick. I'm going right away. Would you be so kind as to tell me what time it is? The girl blushed again, murmured to herself, It's right down cruel of him to ask me, and then spoke up and answered with admirably counterfeited unconcern, 5 minutes after 11. Oh, thank you. You have to go now, have you? Yes. I'm sorry. No reply. Miss Ethelton? Well? You're there, ain't you? Yes, but please hurry. What did you want to say? Well, nothing in particular. It's very lonesome here. It's asking a great deal, I know, but would you mind talking with me again by and by? That is, if it will not trouble you too much. I don't know, but I'll think about it. I'll try. Oh, thanks. Miss Ethelton. Ah, me, she's gone, and here are the black clouds and the whirling snow and the raging winds come again. But she said goodbye. She didn't say good morning, she said goodbye. The clock was right, after all. What a lightning-winged 2 hours it was. He sat down and gazed dreamily into his fire for a while, then heaved a sigh and said, How wonderful it is! 2 little hours ago I was a free man, and now my heart's in San Francisco. About that time, Rosannah Ethelton, propped by the window-seat of her bedchamber, book in hand, was gazing vacantly out over the rainy seas that washed the Golden Gate, and whispering to herself, How different he is from poor Burley, with his empty head and his single little antic talent of mimicry. Part 2. 4 weeks later, Mr. Sidney Algernon Burley was entertaining a gay luncheon company in a sumptuous drawing-room on Telegraph Hill, with some capital imitations of the voices and gestures of certain popular actors and San Franciscan literary people and bonanza grandees. He was elegantly upholstered, and was a handsome fellow, barring a trifling cast in his eye. He seemed very jovial, but nevertheless he kept his eye on the door with an expectant and uneasy watchfulness. 1 sec. By and by a nobby lackey appeared, and delivered a message to the mistress, who nodded her head understandingly. That seemed to settle the thing for Mr. Burley. His vivacity decreased little by little, and a dejected look began to creep into one of his eyes, and a sinister one into the other. The rest of the company departed in due time, leaving him with the mistress, to whom he said, There is no longer any question about it. She avoids me. She continually excuses herself. If I could see her, if I could speak to her only a moment, but this suspense— Perhaps her seeming avoidance is a mere accident, Mr. Burley. Go to the small drawing-room upstairs and amuse yourself a moment. I will dispatch a household order that is on my mind, and then I will go to her room. Without doubt she will be persuaded to see you. Mr. Burley went upstairs, intending to go to the small drawing-room, but as he was passing Aunt Susan's private parlour, the door of which stood slightly ajar, he heard a joyous laugh which he recognized. So without knock or announcement he stepped confidently in. But before he could make his presence known, he heard words that harrowed up his soul and chilled his young blood. He heard a voice say, "Darling, it has come." Then he heard Rosannah Ethelton, whose back was toward him, say, "So is yours, dearest." He saw her bowed form bend lower. He heard her kiss something, not merely once, but again and again. His soul raged within him. The heart-breaking conversation went on. "Rosannah, I knew you must be intoxicating, but this is dazzling, this is blinding, I knew you must be beautiful, this is dazzling, this is blinding, this is intoxicating." "Alonzo, it is such happiness to hear you say it. I know it is not true, but I am so grateful to have you think it is, nevertheless. I knew you must have a noble face, but the grace and majesty of the reality beggar the poor creation of my fancy." Burley heard that rattling shower of kisses again. "Thank you, my Rosannah. The photograph flatters me, but you must not allow yourself to think of that. Sweetheart?" "Yes, Alonzo?" "I am so happy, Rosannah." "Oh, Alonzo, none that have gone before me knew what love was. None that come after me will ever know what happiness is. I float on a gorgeous cloudland, a boundless firmament of enchanted and bewildering ecstasy. Oh, my Rosannah, for you are mine, are you not? Wholly, oh, wholly yours, Alonzo, now and forever. All the day long, and all through my nightly dreams, one song sings itself, and its sweet burden is, Alonzo Fitz Clarence, Alonzo Fitz Clarence, Eastport, State of Maine." "Curse him. I've got his address, anyway," roared Burley inwardly, and rushed from the place. Just behind the unconscious Alonzo stood his mother, a picture of astonishment. She was so muffled from head to heel in furs that nothing of herself was visible but her eyes and nose. She was a good allegory of winter, for she was powdered all over with snow. Behind the unconscious Rosannah stood Aunt Susan, another picture of astonishment. She was a good allegory of summer, for she was lightly clad and was vigorously cooling the perspiration on her face with a fan. Both of these women had tears of joy in their eyes. "So," exclaimed Mrs. Fitz Clarence, "this explains why nobody has been able to drag you out of your room for 6 weeks, Alonzo." "So-ho!" exclaimed Aunt Susan. "This explains why you have been a hermit for the past 6 weeks, Rosannah." The young couple were on their feet in an instant, abashed, and standing like detected dealers in stolen goods awaiting Judge Lynch's doom. "Bless you, my son, I am happy in your happiness. Come to your mother's arms, Alonzo." "Bless you, Rosannah, for my dear nephew's sake, come to my arms." Then there was a mingling of hearts and of tears of rejoicing on Telegraph Hill and in Eastport Square. Servants were called by the elders in both places. Unto one was given the order, "Pile this fire high with hickory wood, and bring me a roasting hot lemonade." Unto the other was given the order, "Put out this fire, and bring me 2 palm leaf fans and a pitcher of ice water." Then the young people were dismissed, and the elders sat down to talk the sweet surprise over and make the wedding plans. Some minutes before this, Mr. Burley rushed from the mansion on Telegraph Hill without meeting or taking formal leave of anybody. He hissed through his teeth, in unconscious imitation of a popular favourite in melodrama, "Him shall she never wed, I have sworn it. Ere great nature shall have doffed her winter's ermine to don the emerald gauds of spring, she shall be mine." Part 3. 2 weeks later. Every few hours, during some 3 or 4 days, a very prim and devout-looking Episcopal clergyman, with a cast in his eye, had visited Alonzo. According to his card, he was the Reverend Melton Hargrave of Cincinnati. He said he had retired from the ministry on account of his health. If he had said on account of ill health, he would probably have erred, to judge by his wholesome looks and firm build. He was the inventor of an improvement in telephones and hoped to make his bread by selling the privilege of using it. "At present," he continued, "a man may go and tap a telegraph wire which is conveying a song or a concert from one state to another, and he can attach his private telephone and steal a hearing of that music as it passes along. My invention will stop all that." "Well," answered Alonzo, "if the owner of the music could not miss what was stolen, why should he care?" "He shouldn't care," said the Reverend. "Well," said Alonzo inquiringly. "Suppose," replied the Reverend, "suppose that instead of music that was passing along and being stolen, the burden of the wire was loving endearments of the most private and sacred nature." Alonzo shuddered from head to heel. "Sir, it is a priceless invention," said he. "I must have it at any cost." But the invention was delayed somewhere on the road from Cincinnati, most unaccountably. The impatient Alonzo could hardly wait. The thought of Rosannah's sweet words being shared with him by some ribald thief was galling to him. The Reverend came frequently and lamented the delay, and told of measures he had taken to hurry things up. This was some little comfort to Alonzo. One forenoon the Reverend ascended the stairs and knocked at Alonzo's door. There was no response. He entered, glanced eagerly around, closed the door softly, then ran to the telephone. The exquisitely soft and remote strains of the "Sweet By and By" came floating through the instrument. The singer was flatting, as usual, the 5 notes that follow the first 2 in the chorus, when the Reverend interrupted her with this word, in a voice which was the exact imitation of Alonzo's, with just the faintest flavour of impatience added. "Sweetheart?" "Yes, Alonzo?" "Please don't sing that any more this week. Try something modern." The agile step that goes with a happy heart was heard on the stairs, and the Reverend, smiling diabolically, sought sudden refuge behind the heavy folds of the velvet window curtains. Alonzo entered and flew to the telephone. Said he, "Rosannah, dear, shall we sing something together?" "Something modern?" asked she with sarcastic bitterness. "Yes, if you prefer." "Sing it yourself, if you like." This snappishness amazed and wounded the young man. He said, "Rosannah, that was not like you." "I suppose it becomes me as much as your very polite speech became you, Mr. Fitz Clarence." "Mr. Fitz Clarence? Rosannah, there was nothing impolite about my speech." "Oh, indeed. Of course, then, I misunderstand you, and I most humbly beg your pardon." "No doubt you said, 'Don't sing it any more today'?" "Sing what any more today?" "The song you mentioned, of course. How very obtuse we are, all of a sudden." "I never mentioned any song." "Oh, you didn't?" "No, I didn't." "I am compelled to remark that you did." "And I am obliged to reiterate that I didn't." "A second rudeness. That is sufficient, sir. I will never forgive you. All is over between us." Then came a muffled sound of crying. Alonzo hastened to say, "Oh, Rosannah, unsay those words. There is some dreadful mystery here, some hideous mistake. I am utterly earnest and sincere when I say I never said anything about any song. I would not hurt you for the whole world. Rosannah, dear, oh, speak to me, won't you?" There was a pause. Then Alonzo heard the girl's sobbings retreating, and knew she had gone from the telephone. He rose with a heavy sigh and hastened from the room, saying to himself, "I will ransack the charity missions and the haunts of the poor for my mother. She will persuade her that I never meant to wound her." A minute later, the Reverend was crouching over the telephone like a cat that knoweth the ways of the prey. He had not very many minutes to wait. A soft, repentant voice, tremulous with tears, said, "Alonzo, dear, I have been wrong. You could not have said so cruel a thing. It must have been someone who imitated your voice in malice or in jest." The Reverend coldly answered, in Alonzo's tones, "You have said all was over between us, so let it be. I spurn your preferred repentance and despise it." Then he departed, radiant with fiendish triumph, to return no more with his imaginary telephonic invention forever. 4 hours afterward, Alonzo arrived with his mother from her favourite haunts of poverty and vice. They summoned the San Francisco household, but there was no reply. They waited and continued to wait upon the voiceless telephone. At length, when it was sunset in San Francisco and 3 hours and a half after dark in Eastport, an answer to the oft-repeated cry of "Rosannah!" But alas, it was Aunt Susan's voice that spake. She said, "I have been out all day, just got in. I will go and find her." The watchers waited 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Then came these fatal words, in a frightened tone. "She is gone, and her baggage with her. To visit another friend, she told the servants, but I found this note on the table in her room. Listen. I am gone. Seek not to trace me out. My heart is broken. You will never see me more. Tell him I shall always think of him when I sing my poor sweet by and by, but never of the unkind words he said about it." That is her note, Alonzo. Alonzo, what does it mean? What has happened? But Alonzo sat white and cold as the dead. His mother threw back the velvet curtains and opened a window. The cold air refreshed the sufferer, and he told his aunt his dismal story. Meantime, his mother was inspecting a card which had disclosed itself upon the floor when she cast the curtains back. It read, "Mr. Sidney Algernon Burley, San Francisco." "The miscreant!" shouted Alonzo, and rushed forth to seek the false reverend and destroy him, for the card explained everything, since in the course of the lovers' mutual confessions they had told each other all about all the sweethearts they had ever had, and thrown no end of mud at their failings and foibles, for lovers always do that. It has a fascination that ranks next after billing and cooing. Part 4. During the next 2 months, many things happened. It had early transpired that Rosannah, poor suffering orphan, had neither returned to her grandmother in Portland, Oregon, nor sent any word to her save a duplicate of the woeful note she had left in the mansion on Telegraph Hill. Whosoever was sheltering her, if she was still alive, had been persuaded not to betray her whereabouts without doubt, for all efforts to find trace of her had failed. Did Alonzo give her up? Not he. He said to himself, "She will sing that sweet song when she is sad. I shall find her." So he took his carpet sack and a portable telephone, and shook the snow of his native city from his Arctics, and went forth into the world. He wandered far and wide in many states. Time and again strangers were astounded to see a wasted, pale, and woe-worn man laboriously climb a telegraph pole in wintry and lonely places, perch sadly there an hour, with his ear at a little box, then come sighing down and wander wearily away. Sometimes they shot at him, as peasants do at aeronauts, thinking him mad and dangerous. Thus his clothes were much shredded by bullets, and his person grievously lacerated. But he bore it all patiently. In the beginning of his pilgrimage he used to say, "Ah, if I could but hear the sweet by and by." But toward the end of it he used to shed tears of anguish and say, "Ah, if I could but hear something else." Thus a month and 3 weeks drifted by, and at last some humane people seized him and confined him in a private madhouse in New York. He made no moan, for his strength was all gone, and with it all heart and all hope. The superintendent, in pity, gave up his own comfortable parlour and bedchamber to him, and nursed him with affectionate devotion. At the end of a week the patient was able to leave his bed for the first time. He was lying, comfortably pillowed, on a sofa, listening to the plaintive miserere of the bleak March winds and the muffled sound of tramping feet in the street below. For it was about 6 in the evening, and New York was going home from work. He had a bright fire with the added cheer of a couple of student lamps, so it was warm and snug within, though bleak and raw without. It was light and bright within, though outside it was as dark and dreary as if the world had been lit with Hartford gas. Alonzo smiled feebly to think how his loving vagaries had made him a maniac in the eyes of the world, and was proceeding to pursue his line of thought further, when a faint, sweet strain, the very ghost of sound, so remote and attenuated it seemed, struck upon his ear. His pulses stood still. He listened and parted his lips and bated breath. The song flowed on. He, waiting, listening, rising slowly and unconsciously from his recumbent position. At last he exclaimed, It is she! Oh, the divine flatted notes!" He dragged himself eagerly to the corner whence the sounds proceeded, tore aside a curtain, and discovered a telephone. He bent over, and as the last note died away he burst forth with the exclamation, "Oh, thank heaven, found at last! Speak to me, Rosannah, dearest! The cruel mystery has been unravelled. It was the villain Burley who mimicked my voice and wounded you with insolent speech." There was a breathless pause, a waiting age to Alonzo. Then a faint sound came, framing itself into language. "Oh, say those precious words again, Alonzo." "They are the truth, the veritable truth, my Rosannah, and you shall have the proof, ample and abundant proof." "Oh, Alonzo, stay by me. Leave me not for a moment. Let me feel that you are near me. Tell me we shall never be parted more. Oh, this happy hour, this blessed hour, this memorable hour! We will make record of it, my Rosannah. Every year, as this dear hour chimes from the clock, we will celebrate it with thanksgivings all the years of our life. We will, Alonzo. 4 minutes after 6 in the evening, my Rosannah, shall henceforth, 23 minutes after 12 afternoon, shall... Why, Rosannah, darling, where are you? In Honolulu, Sandwich Islands. And where are you? Stay by me. Do not leave me for a moment. I cannot bear it. Are you at home? No, dear, I'm in New York, a patient in the doctor's hands. An agonizing shriek came buzzing to Alonzo's ear like the sharp buzzing of a hurt gnat. It lost power in travelling 5,000 miles. Alonzo hastened to say, Calm yourself, my child. It is nothing. Already I am getting well under the sweet healing of your presence. Rosannah. Yes, Alonzo? Oh, how you terrified me. Say on. Name the happy day, Rosannah. There was a little pause. Then a diffident, small voice replied, I blush, but it is with pleasure. It is with happiness. Would you like to have it soon? This very night, Rosannah. Oh, let us risk no more delays. Let it be now, this very night, this very moment. Oh, you impatient creature. I have nobody here but my good old uncle, a missionary for a generation, and now retired from service. Nobody but him and his wife. I would so dearly like it if your mother and your Aunt Susan— Our mother and our Aunt Susan, my Rosannah. Yes, our mother and our Aunt Susan. I am content to word it so if it pleases you. I would so like to have them present. So would I. I suppose you telegraph Aunt Susan. How long would it take her to come? The steamer leaves San Francisco day after tomorrow. The passage is 8 days. She would be here the 31st of March. Then name the 1st of April. Do, Rosannah, dear. Mercy, it would make us April Fools, Alonzo. So we be the happiest ones that day's sun looks down upon in the whole broad expanse of the globe. Why need we care? Call it the 1st of April, dear. Then the 1st of April it shall be, with all my heart. Oh, happiness. Name the hour too, Rosannah. I like the morning, it is so blithe. Will 8 in the morning do, Alonzo? The loveliest hour in the day, since it will make you mine. There was a feeble but frantic sound for some little time, as if wool-lipped disembodied spirits were exchanging kisses. Then Rosannah said, Excuse me just a moment, dear. I have an appointment, and am called to meet it. The young girl sought a large parlour, and took her place at a window which looked out upon a beautiful scene. To the left one could view the charming Nuana Valley, fringed with its ruddy flush of tropical flowers and its plumed and graceful cocoa palms, its rising foothills clothed in the shining green of lemon, citron, and orange groves, its storied precipice beyond, where the first Kamehameha drove his defeated foes over to their destruction, a spot that had forgotten its grim history, no doubt, for now it was smiling, as almost always at noonday, under the glowing arches of a succession of rainbows. In front of the window one could see the quaint town, and here and there a picturesque group of natives enjoying the blistering weather, and far to the right lay the restless ocean, tossing its white mane in the sunshine. Rosannah stood there, in her filmy white raiment, fanning her flushed and heated face, waiting. A Kanaka boy, clothed in a damaged blue necktie and part of a silk hat, thrust his head in at the door and announced, "Frisco Hole!" "Show him in," said the girl, straightening herself up and assuming a meaning dignity. Mr. Sidney Algernon Burley entered, clad from head to heel in dazzling snow, that is to say, in the lightest and whitest of Irish linen. He moved eagerly forward, but the girl made a gesture and gave him a look which checked him suddenly. She said, coldly, "I am here, as I promised. I believed your assertions, I yielded to your importunities, and said I would name the day. I named the 1st of April, 8 in the morning. Now go." "Oh, my dearest, if the gratitude of a lifetime—" "Not a word. Spare me the sight of you, or communication with you, until that hour. No supplications. I will have it so." When he was gone, she sank exhausted in a chair, for the long siege of troubles she had undergone had wasted her strength. Presently she said, "What a narrow escape! If the hour appointed had been an hour earlier! Oh, horror, what an escape I have made! And to think I had come to imagine I was loving this beguiling, this truthless, this treacherous monster. Oh, he shall repent his villainy. Let us now draw this history to a close, for little more needs to be told. On the 2nd of the ensuing April, the Honolulu Advertiser contained this notice: married in this city by telephone yesterday morning at 8 o'clock by Reverend Nathan Hayes, assisted by Reverend Nathaniel Davis of New York, Mr. Alonzo Fitz Clarence of Eastport, Maine, U.S., and Miss Rosannah Ethelton of Portland, Oregon, U.S. Mrs. Susan Howland of San Francisco, a friend of the bride, was present, she being the guest of the Reverend Mr. Hayes and wife, uncle and aunt of the bride. Mr. Sidney Algernon Burley of San Francisco was also present, but did not remain till the conclusion of the marriage service. Captain Hawthorne's beautiful yacht, tastefully decorated, was in waiting, and the happy bride and her friends immediately departed on a bridal trip to Lahaina and Haleakala. The New York papers of the same date contained this notice: married in this city yesterday by telephone at 2:30 in the morning by Reverend Nathaniel Davis, assisted by Reverend Nathan Hayes of Honolulu, Mr. Antonio Fitzclarence of Eastport, Maine, and Miss Rosannah Ethelton of Portland, Oregon. The parents and several friends of the bridegroom were present, and enjoyed a sumptuous breakfast and much festivity until early sunrise, and then departed on a bridal trip to the aquarium, the bridegroom's state of health not admitting of a more extended journey. Toward the close of the memorable day, Mr. and Mrs. Alonzo Fitzclarence were buried in sweet converse concerning the pleasures of their several bridal tours, when suddenly the young wife exclaimed, "Oh, Lonnie, I forgot. I did what I said I would." "Did you, dear?" "Indeed I did. I made him the April Fool, and I told him so too." It was a charming surprise. There he stood, sweltering in a black dress suit, with the mercury leaking out of the top of the thermometer, waiting to be married. You should have seen the look he gave when I whispered it in his ear. Ah, his wickedness cost me many a heartache and many a tear, but the score was all squared up then. So the vengeful feeling went right out of my heart, and I begged him to stay, and said I forgave him everything. But he wouldn't. He said he would live to be avenged, said he would make our lives to curse us. But he can't, can he, dear? Never in this world, my Rosannah. Aunt Susan, the Oregonian grandmother, and the young couple and their Eastport parents are all happy at this writing, and likely to remain so. Aunt Susan brought the bride from the islands, accompanied her across our continent, and had the happiness of witnessing the rapturous meeting between an adoring husband and wife, who had never seen each other until that moment. A word about the wretched Burley, whose wicked machinations came so near wrecking the hearts and lives of our poor young friends, will be sufficient. In a murderous attempt to seize a helpless artisan who he fancied had done him some small offence, he fell into a cauldron of boiling oil and expired before he could be extinguished. The end. And that brings us to the end of the stories for tonight. What a ride. Yeah, like... I am curious to see what... It escalated quickly. Yeah, it... Right, has he got on the train? Perfect timing. Nice. I sort of feel like Mark Twain is kind of taking the piss with that one. Like, what a last line. Yeah, just like, oh, and that guy, he fell into a cauldron of oil and just burned. Anyway, like, it's oil always gets you. Yeah, boom, oil out of nowhere. Yeah, I feel maybe I would love to read like some actual like literary analysis of this and some of the other stories, because it kind of feels like he's just sort of making fun of, like, not necessarily making fun of, but sort of almost as if people had been saying to him, hey, you should do some like some of that like classic romance kind of stuff. Have you thought about writing one of those? And this feels like a response to that of like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. I'll get right on that, and just like spins this off from the top of his head. And like, oh, and that rascally villain who we set up is really good at doing impressions and just happens to do a bunch of impressions and nobody detects it. No one cottons onto it at all. He falls into oil. That's it. Boom, dead, gone. And the others, oh, they're happy. They're fine. He references melodrama. It seems very much like a send-up of melodrama. Exactly. Like it's not to be mean about. I mean, I guess as someone who comes across as generally quite a curmudgeon, I guess as not mean as someone who exhibits this and puts this out into the world can be. But it feels like it's just a sort of, all right, if you want this, I will do this, but it's going to be me writing it, and this is how it's going to turn out, and it's going to be silly. And you have to deal with that. You feel like Mark Twain tends to deliver appropriate endings for terrible people? Oh, yeah. You're going to stay a week with a friend you've never met before, but getting married by phone is quite a bit more daring than that. Yeah, which, again, it's like... I don't know. It's just a really fun. It's a really fun story that I don't feel like it has any particular point. I just think the guy just respectfully loved the sound of his own voice, and frankly, I can't disagree. And just likes to just rattle off things happening and describing them, and coming up with these absurd characters. Melodramas are also very consciously over the top. Yeah, true. Like, by design. So, yeah, it just feels like him doing that to see how it fits. And as I say, like I am the opposite of any kind of scholar of him and his life and his attitudes and his works. And so I would be interested to see what people that have actually, like, studied this and other things from the time and things written about it, said about it by him and others, like what actually comes up on that, because it's probably quite fascinating. But yeah, that brings us to the end of the reading of the stories for tonight. This has been fun. I made a conscious decision that I didn't want to just come back and just go straight into ghost stories, because we do a lot of ghost stories and I do love ghost stories, but I thought I have some different things. I've got, this Mark Twain collection with a whole bunch of things in it, and frankly it might be nice to do something funny. Exactly on time? Yeah. You were rather confused at first about how they were talking? Yeah, like that, because he talks about speaking into a hang on, I suppose, yeah, before I go, let's just, book club this. I was super confused when reading it first. I didn't pick up until ages, like halfway through the story, that he was talking to her over the telephone, because it literally comes up as he's in his house. He calls out to his servant Alfred, and then like such, he sort of calls. He stepped to a speaking tube in the wall, blew its whistle and called "Mother" and repeated it twice. So it's like he's talking into a speaking tube, which I don't immediately interpret as telephone. I just assume that was like some kind of inter-house communication, like his mother was somewhere in the house. And so then, when he can't get through to his mother, then he calls Aunt Susan instead. Speaking tube is different. I don't know. I'm not American. So he calls to his Aunt Susan instead, which is described as: he sat down at a rosewood desk, leaned his chin on the left-hand edge of it, and spoke as if to the floor, "Aunt Susan," which, yeah, so it looked like he was talking to so I read that as Aunt Susan. Like, to me, I thought it was painting the absurd image that Aunt Susan was in the room with him the whole time, where he sat there going, like, "Alfred, damn. Mother, damn. Aunt Susan, you'll do." And she's just been sat there the whole time. And then I was like, so why is she talking about completely different weather? He's talking about snow. It just confused me, and I couldn't, like, pick it together because I was missing this vital piece of information that speaking into yeah, speaking tube, literature tube to communicate sound from one room to another. Like, at no point in this did I pick up, first time round, that he was talking on the phone to Aunt Susan. Yeah, and obviously with it, then there was then the gag about, you know, Aunt Susan when she said, "Oh, this is Rosannah," and you know he's like, "Oh, who was that? Who was that captivating lady?" And he's like, "Oh, that's Rosannah. Would you like to speak to her?" And he has to go and get changed so that he can't talk to her while dressed in his blue dressing gown with the red hot collar or something. But he's on the phone. She can't see him. She doesn't like. So you've got this like, yeah, this which you don't necessarily realise is an absurdity, because if you think, oh, they're in the same place, but no, that's him. He's also kind of a buffoon, which, yeah, again, you sort of come back to it and go through it again. I was like, oh wait, I get that, you were doing a joke. I just missed that the setup made this joke work. And yeah, I did glance up. We were tricked, yeah. I did glance up and see the subdued attire. Yeah, the painstakingly extensive description of every single detail that Rosannah is wearing. Like every single minute aspect of her dress is like picked out and described and named, and yeah, and this is all, yet even in the subdued attire she was divinely beautiful. Like, that's I love the little jab there. Yeah, there's just a lot of very good little bits and pieces in this one. I enjoyed this story a lot. I think it's very silly. And I like how self-knowingly silly it is. Yeah. Was there anything else? Even the names as well, like these Mr. Alonzo Fitz Clarence, Rosannah Ethelton, Mr. Sidney Algernon Burley. Like this feels very pointed. Like I think, as I said at the start, it feels like a decent like counterpoint to Pride and Prejudice. Like Mr. Sidney Algernon Burley feels like someone who would pop up in one of those. Wait, is it's very reminiscent of a name that I have read in one of those kinds of stories. Oh, I'm trying to think which one. Algernon is such yeah. Algernon is a very good name. I mean, I could do some Algernon Blackwood next week, but that's back into Ghosts and Horror Stories, so maybe we want that. It wasn't until the other guy was talking about phones that you wanted to... Yeah, and I guess it's also partly due to telephones working a bit differently back then than they do now. Like, you know, we have the whole picking up a phone, dialing a number, or selecting that, obviously, not even mobile phones, but like landlines and stuff, you know, picking up the phone and dial the number to contact the person on the other end, not to going, Mum. So, yeah, but it's fun. It's done. And I'm going to go. So, I think I saw, unless no, he's still going. I think I'm going to send you over to Billiam, because he is playing Stardew Valley. And he's a lovely guy, and a lovely place to send you all of what's, for me, a Saturday evening. So, yeah, I'm going to launch you all that way. At that point, still would have been operators. Yeah, true, actually, yeah. Yeah. Just one. There we go. Good. Yeah, looks like he's playing some Stardew Valley. So, I'm assuming everyone here knows who Billiam is, but, you know, feel free to go over there, say hi, chuck him a follow. I'll be lurking in chat. And you're all thanking me, well, thank you all in return. Boom, parried and sent back. Yeah, thank you all for being here. I hope you've enjoyed this. Have a lovely rest of whatever weekend you have left, and I will see you in the next one. Lucy will probably, I think, is expected to be back next Wednesday for part 2 of Pride and Prejudice. and I haven't decided what I'll be doing next weekend, but I'm sure it will be stories. And so I will see you then. But for now, goodbye and good night.